for me, my big breakthrough in terms of our relationship is that we kind of went as we're like, hey, we're going as a married couple, we're business partners, and my subconscious pattern kicked in, which is kind of like, oh, we're going and we're doing our own separate things. And so like, I didn't really communicate much with her for the entire week until the last night. Second to last night. And we had this really interesting discussion where I realized like, oh my goodness, like the thing that I came here for has kind of been the thing that has shown up the most as a negative pattern. So we actually had a huge breakthrough. I had a huge breakthrough in terms of understanding how our relationship was working and where it wasn't working. And so it actually shined a really bright light on our relationship and specifically how we interact in our business relationship, and brought some things to light that have like radically shifted. Like in a lot of ways was like we saw this pattern, and in seeing the pattern disappeared.
One of my favorite quotes that Leah said is, when you're ready, the teacher will appear, but when you're really, really ready, the teacher will disappear. And there was definitely moments where the teacher appeared at the retreat and afterwards, but it was really epic to see when, as we were integrating after the retreat, how some of the teachers disappeared and really have the healing that is so critical, as not just as someone who's married, but to an entrepreneur, but we also have a business together. And so that also healed our working relationship rather than like pulling one of us out of polarity, able to walk down the path of life together.
Yeah, and I think that was something that was really unique about doing the retreat together, is that because I knew I was doing my own work and I knew that she was doing her own work. And so I think it gave us both a confidence in seeing each other kind of take themselves on, that it just changed how we relate to each other in a safe space for issues that were there in our marriage to come up, in our partnership to come up, and for us to deal with in an environment that is really hard to replicate at home. And because of that, it's just really changed how I feel about myself, how she feels about herself, and how we interact. And like she said, like for a long time, a really strong pattern in our marriage was like this codependency. And that has really shifted. And there's so much more independence and interdependence in a relationship instead of codependence.
The majority of the retreat, we were on opposite ends of the room working on our own stuff. And I think one of the most beautiful pictures of like one of the biggest things, the biggest impact in like a visual representation is the very last day me and Kam were sitting next to each other, going through, like integrating, but also still going through stuff.
Yeah.
And I was able to do that even though I could feel him. It was like, yeah,
it was so powerful.
Yeah. Ended us with holding hands and me saying, let's make a baby.
Yeah.
So, you know.
Yeah, that was cool. And it was the amount of time that it would have taken us to get to that point in our normal day-to-day life, or even just doing even just coaching in within the context of our normal life, it would have taken honestly, I think years. I honestly think it would have taken years to get to that point.
Yeah.
Because it had taken us years to heal some of the stuff it had literally taken us over a year since last April to get to a place where we were even able to have that conversation, even able to do that work.
Yeah.
And then it feels like we did a year's worth of work, at least a year's worth of work in a week.
Even more, but that's stuff that's still integrating, still showing up. Because it didn't end at the retreat. That was the breakthrough, and we're slowly transforming.
Yeah.
Well,
Maui, it was like the beginning, actually.
Yeah.
But it gave us the tools to do it on our own.
Yeah.
It's crazy because the tools that Bucky and Leah provide for you, not just in the context of their coaching, but specifically in this retreat, a lot of the things, because we've been coaching with them for like 3 months before the retreat, a lot of the things that they had been talking about and the tools that they've bbeen trying to give me suddenly made sense.
It finally clicked.
It kind of clicked on like what they were actually talking about, and now it's like I'm in the practice of actually using those tools, and I had them before, but I just didn't really know how to use them.
Bucky and Leah are incredible at curating the perfect place for you to move through what you know that you're going to be working through, and also everything else that you don't think you're going to be working on. And integrating pieces, because like Kam was saying, like there were elements of healing that was already happening through their coaching, but it was like everything finally, we were able to see the full picture because we were taken out of our normal routines, and so we were able to have more of a bird's eye view and then focus in on pieces that needed to be removed or created or maintained. If you even, because we are a partnership, like a business partnership, but even if you're not like an entrepreneurial couple together in business together, still go, because there's still it's not
because
just,
you are
even
if you're not, like that's the thing, even if you're not doing the business together where you're branded together, it's like if your spouse is an entrepreneur,
you're doing business
together. And if you don't see it that way, then that's why you need to go to retreat. And like this is probably something that we'll look to do like every year, to move through the stuff that just accumulates and just to see things from an entirely different perspective, because there's stuff that we don't know. And that was a big part of the retreat, is we knew that there were things there. I knew that there were things there for me. I knew there were things there for us as a couple, but I had no idea how much was there, which is kind of the point of why I did. So much of the fear about being honest with myself, being honest with her, about holding a different kind of space for her when she's expressing, and it created a deeper sense of safety that was never really there.
Yeah.
And I feel more secure and safe in the relationship. And I think a lot of that's because I feel more secure and safe in myself, and she feels more secure and safe in herself. And so together, there's like, our relationship can now hold so much more. And the stuff that we've been through since Maui, like prior to Maui, would have really taken a toll on our relationship. And instead it was like, kind of like minor road bugs.
And also seeing Bucky and Leah as a couple and see them work through, like in the retreat, like not just like how they showed up as facilitators, but in their own work also helps. Like even now, when like Cameron was saying, like when we notice like, oh, she's in her process or you're in your process, like we also had developed tools, or really incorporated tools, not just for like us as individuals working through stuff, but also how to support the other person in a way that you're still authentic and still 100% yourself, and able to support from a way that pulls, like if I'm in my process and I am like a child in my own process, Cam's able to hold a standard that brings me back into my queen. And same for Cam, like I'm able to hold the standard and I'm able to help really anchor, so that pulls him back up into his king. And I think that was a huge piece that wasn't a spoken thing that was going to happen. It was just something that naturally happened through the work that they do.
If you're an entrepreneurial couple, you're going to go through things that you don't understand in your business. You're going to go through things you don't understand in your marriage, and those two things are so closely connected that you can't separate them. You can't run the business without it affecting the marriage. Started to shift when we started working with Bucky and Leah, but the Maui retreat put us on the same level for the first time. And it healed so much stuff that was there before, and it was almost like, you know, couples talk about like you get to a point where like the past doesn't matter, and like we actually got to that point.
You want a deeper love that goes beyond what you've seen in your parents or grandparents or whoever is like your standard for what you don't want and what you do want. if you want to go even deeper and even greater than that with love, trust in yourself, and also trust in a relationship, and really just this camaraderie and this mutual respect.
Yeah, huge. That was something
piece.
massive.
Oh yeah. Like if you went deeper, all of those things like just come.
Yeah.
You literally have nothing to lose, because regardless on your intention, Bucky and Leah create the space where it goes. They listen to what your intention is and hear what you're not saying.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a huge piece.
And typically for me, how it works, and I think this is true for a lot of people, is coming into Maui, it was kind of like my awareness of what I needed to change was at like 5%. I'm like, yeah, I think there might be something that I might need to work on. And like these things are usually pretty helpful. So like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to see what's there for me. And then it was like stepping through that little window into this whole new world that I was like, oh, I didn't know what I didn't know. And I'm just super glad that I went. I'm super glad that I went, because everything is different now.
So much changed when we got back. And
in ways that I have not expected and couldn't have predicted.
yeah.
And for someone like me, I've done a lot of transformational work. So for me, it wasn't like this radical 180-degree shift in my life. It was like everything is just slightly tweaked. I have a new perspective on everything, and everything is like building on itself to get better. It's like now there's momentum in my life for the first time in a long time.